Hello, hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Speaking Legally, where the legal meets the cultural. And today I am on location, so it's me this time. But that doesn't stop the show. And of course, our legal experts are here. So we thank you for tuning in and being a part of the show. And as we get started and greet everyone, congratulations to the second African American mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, and to all of those who won their seats in City Council, a Black woman borough president of the Bronx, Vanessa Gibson. So it's a lot to be excited about. So congratulations to two councilwomen that are close to me, Councilwoman Selena Brooks Powers and Councilwoman Natasha Williams, as well as our judge. That a couple of judges in Brooklyn. So anyway, it's an exciting day after. So thank you for being here. Hey, Deborah, appreciate you tuning in. So I'm going to turn it over to our legal experts so they can greet you, and I'll be back.
Hello, Ed
Yeah, we'll see.
Pichardo.
We'll
Okay,
see
Royce.
about that, right, man? We'll see about whether she'll be back or not, right? The proof is in the pudding. When you're on location, you're on location. Welcome everybody, Royce. But there she is. She back. See, there we go.
He's back.
We're gonna see how it happened. How it
Guess
happens
who's
here.
back?
So, for those who are not familiar, that was Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant, always sending us off into our mission of the day, which is making sure that we inform our audience, bringing the legal and the cultural, letting them meet, letting them clash, letting them battle out, and also give information that is very, very important to our community and having an understanding how we can be most effective in this evolving, moving, socially reforming world, in particular for brown and black folks in the United States. I'm Royce Russell of R Square Esquire, PLLC, and my partner is Ed Pichardo. Why don't you say a couple of words to the peoples?
No doubt, Royce. Thank you for the intro. Once again, Ed Pichardo, Law Office of Edward Pichardo, PLLC. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. As usual, I believe you're going to find the information that you get on this show fulfilling as well as sustaining spiritually and mentally. So, we got a good show going here. As Dr. Grant mentioned a little earlier, a lot going on in the political world. Yesterday was election day. I hope you were able to get out to vote. If not yesterday, then even earlier on. And, as was, announced last week, we were really encouraging people to vote early so that practice can continue in that, and so that it's not cut back for lack of use by the voters of the city and as well as the state. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'd like to.
One of the things that we normally jump in, you get ready to jump in. Before we jump into the context, we always have to inform our community of deaths that take place in our community of either notable, infamous, and even famous people that have passed on into the evergreen, as we say. And so one person that we know of, and Ed and I, we've talked about this, he's in our age range, and he's been around town for a while. And if you're practicing law, or if you play ball in Harlem, and you play ball anywhere in Manhattan, you should know of this person, and that's Alfredo Geddes Martinez. Alberto Geddes Martinez, right?
AKA
who's Alberto Geddes Martinez? Well,
AKA Alpo Martinez.
Alpo. That's right, Alpo Martinez. And for those who don't know, Alpo was one of the infamous drug dealers. We could say infamous drug dealers because he pled guilty to selling drugs. So it's not alleged or, we think it was Alpo. He died at the age 55. Some people categorize it as an assassination. And most people believe that he was assassinated because after he was arrested for the various of drug charges that he was facing, he turned confidential informant for the FBI and basically fingered a lot of people that were in the drug trade in Harlem and thereabout. And I'm sure he probably fingered his connect as far as how he was getting the drugs here. And for those, being a former ball player up and down those street tournaments in Harlem, Alpo was like, he came from the lineage of, let's just say, those that like Smoking Machine, allegedly Smoking Machine, and King Towers. That was kind of like a drug outfit where drug dealers dabbled into sports and bet on games, and the high-profile athletes came out and played in these sports. Alpo kept that tradition before the rappers like Jay-Z and Puff Daddy and Fat Joe and Big Pun and all them got into bringing, pro ball players to the street. And, as Alpo would do it, he did it in style and he did it in destruction, from bringing pit bulls onto the court when a call didn't go his way and threatening to let the pit bulls go to bite anyone and everyone that disagreed, from, allegedly flying helicopters and landing at games before the game started, and making sure that everything is set up, and making sure people in the community, receive something, let's just say, at the end of the day for their commitment. And so he was shot dead this past week, and some believe in retaliation for him being an informant for the FBI. And we also have what other death we have that is notable? We have what? Ronnie Green, is it? Or Ronnie Wilson?
Ronnie Wilson from the Gap Band.
Right, Ronnie Wilson from the Gap Band. That's right.
Here. I'm going to leave the screen for a hot second.
And Ronnie Wilson is a co-founder for the Gap Band. And what was that song? I think it was Outstanding. I think they had the song Outstanding, Girl, You Knock Me Out, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely.
That's right.
You dropped a bomb on me. Yeah, right. those brothers were wonderful. They were within that same time period and tradition as Earth, Wind, and Fire and some of those other legendary groups. May he rest in power. Definitely. As to Alpo, I mean, we found out about it. I found out about it on Sunday night when I was sitting with some friends. I wasn't out on the streets in the days when he was active in Harlem, like you were, Royce, but I definitely living in Grand Projects and Lincoln Projects. Let's
watch that word active in Harlem.
Well, I meant active in terms of I'm talking about Alpo actually. I'm talking about Alpo actually in terms of Willie Burgers up there on 145th, 155th up there. That's right. All the drug dealers hanging out. For some of the audience who also just aren't familiar with some of this, you should probably check out a film called Paid in Full. That was basically a portrayal of Cameron plays Alpo, Mekhi Phifer plays Richie Porter, and then there's another actor that plays AZ. The reason why Richie Porter's mention is important is because that whole, what a lot of attention came to Alpo because Richie Porter's youngest brother had been kidnapped and taken for ransom. And later on, it was found out that Richie Porter's brother, his uncle rather, had something to do with it and was in all of the papers because eventually Richie Porter got killed, apparently, when he was trying to deliver the ransom money. And in the movie, it's the suspicion is that Alpo had something to do with that death and the taking of that money. So I think you want to check out that film.
Not only death, Ed, he killed the person that was supposed to kill Richie Porter, and remember, he sent back a little body part, right?
That's the
way the movie plays out.
Yeah, and also there's also a documentary I believe on YouTube that was filmed where Alpo talks about all of this stuff quite openly after he's already out. And just before we end on this topic, what's amazing, Royce and Dr. Grant, is that I actually saw with my own eyes Alpo hanging out at Red Rooster, I think sometime last year or a year and a half ago. And me and two of my buddies were like, what is he doing out here? He's supposed to be in witness protection. What's going on? So it was mind blowing. And so when we heard the news, we were like, oh, okay.
Well, that's what you call hiding in plain sight. You're hiding in plain sight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to be out and about. But before we leave this subject matter, because I know we got a whole lot more to talk about.
Yes.
There's one person we definitely have to pay homage to, and that's Mario Van Peebles.
How can
we forget? You want to talk about the genre of Black exploitation?
Yeah, that was some time back.
Right. You want to talk about a genre of a man who was well dressed, right? Well dressed and put together. You can't forget Brother Peebles died. I think it was like 83 or 89, something like that. But you can't forget him. I mean, he was on the set before there was a Spike Lee. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I was going to mention that. You beat me to it. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Melvin Van
So
Peebles, Melvin Van Peebles, we definitely got to give.
And he
I
brought
think
his
that's right,
son,
Melvin Van Peebles.
and he brought his
absolutely.
son Mario into the film industry
Right.
because Mario acted in one of his first films. So
That's right. And
that's definitely a body of work to check out.
And Melvin lived into 89 years old, so he was around 8 decades. So he's seen a lot and did a lot. And he's always famous for having that cigar in his mouth. You got to have that cigar. Yep.
Sweetback's badass song. That's right.
That's right. That's right. So I just
so
want to make sure we reach out to him. And he always had the round lenses. He always went the round frames. He always went with the round frames.
And we know how you love frames, Mr. Russell. We know how you love frames. So thank you, Kevin.
They gotta be round. They gotta be round.
Yes, we know. And Deborah's been participating as well as Kevin. Thank you for always being here on the show. We thank you for that. And I figure we can just scroll through real quick the wins from yesterday. I think it's worth just seeing. And interesting, did you see that folks like Tiffany Caban came back into politics and now secured a council seat? We know we have a couple of new names on the scene, but some old names who didn't win other elections, but came back so that they could participate in American democracy. Look who we have here. So let's just scroll through real quick. Of course, we know that Eric Adams is going to be the next mayor of New York City, but I'm surprised at how many votes that Curtis Silva got. Isn't that interesting?
Well, a lot of those votes came out of Staten Island. He actually, I believe he won Staten Island as of last night.
All of Staten Island. The whole island.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. And Brad Lander made it through. I know there was a lot of rallying.
Brother Lander, there we go.
Yeah.
I actually met his challenger a couple of weeks ago outside of a restaurant in East Harlem called Sapaora. And he was talking about how he was running for control. And I was like, okay. And then I realized later when I did my research, he was running on the Republican line. And I was like,
There you go.
Yeah.
And look, brother Brad Lander, he's been in the forefront of many social justice movements. So it's good to see that his social activism played a role in him becoming a controller.
Yeah. Yes, there were a lot of Democrats that were out campaigning on his behalf. And Jumaane is, again, our public advocate. That was another interesting race. He had a Republican challenger who got some traction. And Anthony Herbert, who we know from Brooklyn, has been throwing his hat in the ring for a while. And he made a splash.
You know what's interesting about him running? He's also stated and put out in the public that he's going to run for governor. So he's going to run for governor and still secure this. You might think that there might be somebody that says, well, if he's going to run for governor, why would I vote for him as a public advocate? Because he's going to move on. But that just shows that you can have your eyes on the prize in the future and still be in the present. So congratulations.
Well, he ran for lieutenant governor and did quite well. He almost beat Hochul. So, I think that's what's really, pushing his continued desire to run for the big seat. But we'll see.
We'll see, because we know that there's already
and there's not going to be any ranked choice voting. So
yes,
they will not.
Our favorite topic.
Our
favorite topic. And Alvin Bragg, as we know, this as well is something that we were anticipating becoming the next district attorney for Manhattan. So that's a major change.
It's going to be interesting to see what his body of work looks like once he's in office, right? Because on a show like this, we always talk about you have to make sure that people that have your right mindset is actually in power, right? People that are beholden to the community, that are moving in the way of social justice. And now we have the first Black district attorney in New York, in Manhattan, rocking and rolling. And he has footprints and he has a floor plan of what works and what doesn't work by looking at someone like Eric Gonzalez, looking at the body of work of Robert Johnson. And so let's just see what he does in a very commercial, and one would say polarizing to a degree, borough.
Well, it's going to be interesting, but it's definitely historic. And we have our borough president for the Bronx, Vanessa Gibson, of whom I'm very excited and know this sister. She's a worker. She's not new to the office of the borough president. She has been in that space handling outreach, the education front and so many other areas. So excited for her. And Brooklyn has a new borough president as well, Antonio Reynoso.
And I think he might be the first Latino to hold that office.
Yeah, yes,
because before Eric Adams, it was Marty Markowitz for the longest, right?
Exactly.
From as far as I can remember, and I don't think before that there was a Latino Brooklyn borough president. So nice development there, diversity wise and historically.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about Cordell Clear. That's
we
get
into it.
We get into
Kevin. We get into it.
Easy, man.
And there's a new borough president for
Mark
Manhattan,
Levine,
which was
Mark
interesting
Levine.
as well. Mark Levine, and then of course my dear friend and brother Donovan Richardson. That's right, Donovan Richards.
Donovan, be careful. Set the road and plan your work and work your plan now.
Yeah, he's doing amazing. He's reaching out all across the borough and really doing some incredible work already. So excited to see that continue. Vito, the Republican, Vito Fossala, I don't think that was a shock to most, is the borough president in Staten Island. There was a woman in the race, but Vito pulled it out. City Council, District 32, Joanne Ariola, 48, Ina.
Yeah, I keep scrolling. There's a lot of folks on there.
Yeah, it's the whole David Carr.
Cordell Clear. There we go. She took over for. She took over for Senator. Oh my gosh, why is his name escaping me all of a sudden now?
Because you old, brother. You old.
That's why. That's why. Oh my God.
Christopher
Perkins.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
So this is definitely new for Harlem. Keith Powers, Gail Brewer. It's on city council now.
I'm going to put out there what you're not going to see on this screen is that a judge-elect is Kim Parker, who became a civil judge. And those are the judges that really touch you because you're in front of them every day and every night. She's a former Legal Night volunteer for the National Action Network, and now she is going to be a judge. And so, those are the people that you need to touch and know.
Yeah. And see, Tiffany Caban here, if you recall, she ran for Queens DA, lost to Katz. But she's now a councilwoman. So
now she's a councilwoman. And you notice that the past borough president ran for city council and now Gail is on city council. So this is interesting. And there are a lot of women who are now on city council. Adrian Adams, one of my closest girlfriends, is still in District 28. I got to shout out my people.
One of the things that I find interesting, one of the things I find interesting is that you run for a position like a district attorney, which has a unique set of qualities that you need to have in order to become that person, right? Mm-hmm. And then you pivot to council person, which has a total nother unique set of qualities, not even say unique. They're kind of abstract. They're in the air somewhere. I don't know what the qualities are, but they're out there. And I want to know how you reconcile the two, because there will come a time and point that I believe she might run again for DA. And so is that just kind of getting the political feet under you so you can garner more support? That's just a question out there.
Well, I think what frankly happens is that, she was running for basically a borough-wide seat. So she was able to put together a strong coalition, strong partners, a strong campaign staff for that run, and came close. So I think folks were kind of like, look, you got the infrastructure. You didn't win this DA seat, but certainly, there's this open council seat, and you should be able to win that seat given the amount of notoriety that you got in publicity. You're a known face now. People know you. So let's do it. And that's what they did.
But that's my point, Ed. Is it all about getting the W, or is it about doing the work in a particular area? And I'm just using her as an example, right? I mean, we can go to many other people that you run for controller, you don't get that position, and then next thing you know, you become borough president somewhere. I mean, those are vastly different agendas. And being a district attorney is a vastly different agenda than being a council person.
Well, and that's where, you know, the electorate has to be educated and decide exactly what they want, because I'm not sure that the current Queens DA had been practicing right
Well, yes,
before that
correct.
seed.
And then
You
she
know,
moved into a very specialized position.
well, you know, some people are
And
going
that
to
speaks
say,
more to me. That speaks more to the power structure than policy and professional history.
So
well, I
moving
think
along, but yeah,
you made your point.
interested. Yeah, no, you made your point. You made your point, and to be seen, and that's, you know, I do know our current Queen's DA very well, and you know, there's something to be said. Everyone has a right to how they view it, and we all three have our personal rights. We're not trying, I mean, personal thoughts that we won't influence you with, but it's definitely up for looking, taking note, and seeing. But I am grateful that she is doing a great job now that she's in the position for the borough. In some areas, and maybe folks disagree in others, but it is something to watch how all of these races play out and who runs for what, if they don't get what, and what happens next, because there's a lot that's still bubbling up. So congratulations again to Councilwoman Selena Brooks Powers, Crystal Hudson. We're just going to scroll through all of them because, you know, it is quite a bit that we had. We're
I see
just
Darlene
highlighting
Mealy is still in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we had quite a few newcomers to City Council. And I think
Mercedes
it's important.
Narcisse, yeah.
Yeah, and it's important for us to talk about because there are a lot of potential laws that could or could not change as a result. And I wanted to get to the ballot.
Oh, this was
proposals so that we could
surprising,
see-
these ballot proposals. I mean,
Yeah.
most of them got defeated, I think, right?
Well,
I mean, I'm
the
glad
one
the right to a clean
redistricting-
environment passed, but I'm surprised on this redistricting proposal. The voter
It failed.
registration got a no. Wow. No excuse absentee got a no. And I would imagine that if you break down who voted no on these, I think this was an upstate thing.
Yeah, it's so, but I think part
City
of the
Civil
issue
Court,
is we
yes.
don't educate enough on the ballot proposals. People get to the polls and they're just focused on voting for a candidate, and they weren't versed or understand what's happening with the ballot proposals.
And I think
something-
I think you're making an excellent point, Dr. Grant. In fact, I got a phone call this weekend from someone, and the mom was on the line asking me to help them clarify or understand these ballot proposals. And so what I did was I said, well, folks, let's grab our voter book, because they send you a book here in New York City for you to that gives you the list of the candidates, explains the positions. Wonderful book. And it gave like a paragraph on each one of these proposals. And I was able to help them understand what it was that was being asked and what the change in the law was. And once we went through that exercise, they were like, oh, okay, I understand it now. But at first, it was very confusing. I think most people did find it confusing. And that's probably the reason why most of those went down. I mean, the right to clear environment, that was going to pass because everybody wants, I think most people, except,
I think one of the
straight up
things
energy lobby want a clean environment.
I think what really happens sometimes is that you don't even see it played out on TV. You don't see it played out in the media. You don't see it be a problem that the first time you see it is then. And so maybe we need to hold the feet to the fire of some of the candidates to say, you need to talk about these proposals as you go on and talk about your platform. What say you to those proposals, and not just leave it blank. And when you get to the booth, now all of a sudden you have to read and educate yourself, in a very quick way. That's just something for us to think about and something for the community to recognize.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I know we have a lot to touch on today. Oh, but you had a point, Senor Pichardo?
Yeah. I mean, and one of the things too is unless you're able to speak from a point of experience, it's also tough because when I was working for the state Senate, there was much discussion about an independent redistricting commission, one that would not be swayed depending on who was in control of the legislature insofar as redistricting and quote unquote gerrymandering. And so a lot of people didn't understand that that's what that impacted, that idea of trying to make sure that the district lines are drawn in a fair manner, because most of the time what ends up happening is that the party that's in control is the one that's going to draw the lines, and usually it's drawn in favor of the incumbents of that party, or depending on who the governor is, whether it suits him or hers, he or she's agenda at that particular moment. And we can talk about that maybe some other time, but my particular knowledge about that stuff, or exposure to it more so, was helpful for me and helping others understand what that was for. So yeah, and the problem is that these ballot proposals are something that were put on there that pretty much exist outside of the candidates who are running themselves. So the only people to really do the job of promoting it and pushing it would have been, say, the Board of Elections, and even there, they don't want to necessarily get involved because they don't want to exhibit some level of partiality. So those who were advocates of this stuff should have maybe just taken the initiative of saying, "Hey, folks, let's explain to you what these are and what they mean." I mean, they were pretty well explained in the book, but hey, what you gonna
Not
do?
everybody reads. Not everyone reads.
Once again, right. Once again, you're in a situation where you have to ask yourself, is this by happenstance or is this on purpose? I mean, we have a lot of public service announcements that are made on TV. A lot of public service announcements are made on TV. And why not something that you're going to vote on? Why not have money that's set aside to have commercials that speak to that? I don't think it's unreasonable.
Well,
if this was the
to be
Second Amendment
continued.
right that had to deal with whether or not you had a gun or not, you better believe the parties that were interested in that movement, NRA and otherwise, would have commercials. So that we're going to make it difficult for you to get that information, or we're going to leave it to those that have lack of resources to get that information any way they know how?
Well, the only thing I would say to that is that there are certain individuals, forces, groups who didn't want these to pass. Folks who don't want any expansion of voting opportunities insofar as the absentee ballots are concerned, and removing the obstacles to that. We don't want people who, quote unquote, might normally vote Democrat having more access to voting than they do now. We don't want independent commission doing redistricting, because we want to be able, if we're in power, to be able to decide those lines, especially if we're on the right side, conservative side of things, where we know that population of those who lean in that direction are shrinking. We also don't want any expansion of voter registration opportunities, because right now you have to register to vote far in advance in order for you to be able to vote. And there are people who are like, nah, keep it that way so that certain people can't vote at the last minute even though they want to. So from that perspective, yeah, I guess I can agree with you. But they made it onto the ballot, so these proposals had a certain amount of support, because else they wouldn't have been put on there.
But my position is not the context. But Ed, I hear what you're saying as far as the pros and cons of the people having a position. All right, you're breaking up a little bit, but I hear you as far as the pros and cons. Who may not want certain things to come to light? What I'm speaking to is something that's a little bit more general. The fact that it is going to be something that's going to be voted on, it should be out in the public. And if there is any democracy, any neutrality, any unbiased filter, then that should come to the forefront by these public service announcement type of commercials or infomercials that just plainly state what the information is. Not necessarily that you have to vote one way, but what the information is. And that is critical to those that don't have resources to do certain things. And so that's what I'm really speaking to. Whether the Republicans want you to vote for it or whether the Democrats want you to vote for it, that is an issue. But the fact, I see we having a lot of technical difficulty given folks are on location. So I don't know if the rest of the audience can hear me. Since
yes, you can. You're coming through loud and clear, and I know we have another story that talks about victory in the mayor's race with Byron Brown. I don't know if you want to start jumping into that.
Yeah, let me talk about that because this one is extremely interesting.
All right, guys, you're coming in broken up.
I don't know if folks are familiar with write-in candidates. When you get your ballot, you will see that even though there's a list of candidates there for you to select,
unfortunately, there's this guys, box. I can't hear you guys and your pictures and any
yeah, I mean, I see Dr. Grant clearly and myself clearly. I see you less clearly, or I see you breaking up. So I'm not sure if Dr. Grant, should I continue or?
Yeah, we're fine. It's something on Mr. Russell's end, but let's continue. The show goes on.
One of the things that was surprising.
One of the things here is that there's, like I was saying, on ballots, there's this write-in option where you can just write somebody in that you want to get that seat that you otherwise want to vote for, but is not available as a choice, and you can do that. And so that's what happened here. Mayor Byron Brown, who was the incumbent coming into this thing, word is, or it's well known that he ran a less than vigorous campaign during the Democratic primary. He wouldn't even debate his challenger, India Walton, who's a newcomer, was running, I believe, on the Working Families Party, and and was running basically with left-leaning progressive. She considers herself a socialist, quote unquote socialist. So Mayor Brown wouldn't even debate her. He's been the mayor for like 4 terms in the city of Buffalo. Has been able to beat back challengers, but he lost the Democratic primary, and some people attribute that to a low voter turnout during the primary. So he loses. So now everybody is like going nuts because they're like, "Oh snap! How did you lose?" And so he tries to get on the independent party line. Unfortunately, the court say no, and it's a no because he didn't get the original petition signatures to be able to get on that line, is my understanding. So what does he do? He finally says, you know what? I'm going to vote. I'm going to ask people to write me in on their ballots. And that's what happens. Now, the problem here, of course, is that one of the people who kind of first came out into the public space pushing for that write-in option was a guy named Carl Palladino, who was a conservative, pro-Trump Republican, ran for governor years ago, has said some racist things out in the public sphere, talked bad about Obama being some sort of secret Muslim terrorist, and called for Loretta Lynch to be lynched. I mean, just horrible individual, was basically pushing people to write Brother Brown in. And in fact, Byron Brown had to disavow himself from this individual, even though, there's some articles out there talking about particular ties between him and Carl Palladino. But, putting all that aside, I don't know how Byron Brown was successful. It appears that he was successful because the Board of Elections still has to examine these ballots, make sure that these write-in ballots get credited to him and his candidacy. But it's looking like once all those ballots are examined and counted, he's going to stay in office. And by the way, this will be his 5th term, and no other apparently mayor in Buffalo history has gone on to serve a 5th term. So I'll let you go ahead, Royce, if you have anything else on
Well,
this, or
there's
I'll
a couple of
piggyback
things
after your comments.
There's a couple of things that we can learn from this. The cultural side is that just because you might be a known entity, that doesn't mean that you can ride on your reputation. That's number one, and that's for real, for real. The other side is that as a Black person in America, you have to do twice as good. You have to work twice as hard. So the fallacy or the misconception that you could sit back and because you've been, in that position before as mayor, that is going to happen again. This whole experience has laid that down that you can't. The other side is that now you have to go from door to door, which is a cultural side. We never afraid to go door to door. We do that every single day if we want to get something done and actually roll up the sleeves and do the work and pick the cotton and do whatever field work it needs to be done to make sure that at the end of the day you're successful. So I'm definitely proud for that. But as people in the community, we should not fool ourselves, because if we only look at this from a skin deep, from a race perspective, you might be disappointed. And what do I mean by that? In order for him to get to where he was successful in this race, and as Ed pointed out, we don't really know to the depths of how many hands he shook and how many deals he made to get to where he is. It wasn't just, I'm going to knock on every single door and people are going to write in. It wasn't power to the people all the way. There was some power to politics. There was some going across the aisle. There was some conservative ways because the other candidate was talking about cutting funds for the police, 7.5 million, was talking about affordable housing. And not that Brother Brown wasn't saying these things. He wasn't saying it loud enough, if he was saying these things, because he thought that his opponent was someone that he didn't have to reckon with. And once that backfired, then he had to make some deals, because now he couldn't get on any ballot. He couldn't get on the independent. He got skipped around and bumped out when it came down to Democrat. So now where is he? So now he got to shake hands of people that he would never have shook hands before. And the issue becomes, what does he owe and who does he owe it to? Or can he do, anti-David Dinkins and just say, look, I'm here, I'm in power, I'm going to have my succession plan, I'm going to do what I need to do. 5th term is not going to be a 6th term. Thank you for shaking a hand. Politics is a funny place. Whoever's your friend is your foe next week, and let's keep it moving.
And it's funny that you say that phrase at the end, because Carl Palladino in the past would criticize Brother Brown, and then it became, and the conservatives with him up there in Buffalo, all those Republicans and conservatives, they never liked him until this woman who was an avowed, or I shouldn't even say avowed, because avowed or not, anytime you mention the word socialist, people get scared. They're like, oh my gosh, this person is going to end our way of life and stuff. And so they get up in arms, and that's what happened here. So it became the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's what ended up happening here. So all these conservatives start rallying around Byron Brown, asking people to write him in. And this actually basically was looked upon as a civil war within the Democratic Party, because the sister Walton comes kind of from that AOC part of the Democratic Party, that progressive part of the party that even now is causing quite a stir in terms of the passing of that package in conference. They're asking for certain things to be included in there, and they don't want the moderates and the conservatives in the party to control the agenda. And here it was a real split, because I think Schumer went ahead and supported Walton, and the other senator continued to support Brown. I think the local Dems supported Brown, but others didn't. It was a mess. I mean, it was something to watch.
It was a mess to the untrained eye, right?
Well, I say a mess only because if I run in the Democratic Party and I win fair and square, that means that all the Dems are supposed to coalesce around me as the nominee and support me. And that's not what happened here. What happened here is, even though that sister won, a lot of Dems were like, hold on, wait a minute. No, we're not supporting you, even though you won. We don't know what happened, but we're not supporting you. And,
But that goes,
and you're not supposed to do
that goes directly to what you have preached before, and we see it played out, right? It's not the party, it's the policies. And if we're going to move away from the dual party system, which you are an advocate of, like, come on, guys, you got to have more than two parties. There's more than one voice here.
That's right.
Then
that's right.
we should not be afraid of the fact that within the so-called political structure, that there is not a monolithic voice within a particular party that says, you know what, I agree with A, B, but C, I don't agree with, or E and F, I don't agree with. And, I think we should do away with words that kind of give it a negative connotation, like a fraction or whatever. No, the policies that you're bringing forward, I agree with, but I don't agree with those other two. And if there's a person that got my A, B, and C, D that I want to follow, then that's what should happen. Hopefully not to the demise of someone else, some other party that doesn't even have your interest at hand. But this is what unfolded here. You know what I mean? Whenever you talk about cut police funding, whenever you talk about certain things, you're going to have that type of, for every action, there's a reaction, right? And this is what is really at heart is at what cost? At what cost did he have to resurrect himself? Did it cost him his right arm, left arm, or both arms?
Well, my issue is I'm just saying that because then at some point it becomes a matter of consistency. If you're an individual who truly operates in a very independent fashion, even outside of your party affiliation, then fine. But I got a feeling that if you examine the records of those who refused after the primary to support India Walton, to see how independent of streak they are, I think you're going to be a bit disappointed. I got a feeling that in many other contexts, these were individuals who were party stalwarts that went down the party line in most instances, except that when this happened, they were like, oh, wait a minute, we don't like the results here, so now we're going to exhibit some level of independence. And I'm not sure if it was tied to policy either. I think it was more so a power dynamic here, because that sister right there, I think even on primary night, she had made some pronouncements that she was looking to make some sweeping changes in that city. And right. when you're a mayor for 4 terms and going on 5, there's a lot of people eating off of that turkey, boy. I mean, there's a lot of people got their plate ready to get their slice, and for you to tell them that's not going to be there, and all that food is going to be moved to that other table over there, they start getting crazy. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I've been working here for 15 years for the man. Now you telling me that all of a sudden my job is in jeopardy? I don't get to do this anymore? I'm not letting that go without a fight.
Well, I think
the thing is, nobody, I have yet to see anybody win an election off of a write-in. I'm sorry. I remember one time I joked around and put Tupac as a write-in candidate one time in one election that I was voting because I hated all the choices. So I wrote Tupac. Another time I wrote Malcolm X or Fat Albert or something.
To the same thing. It goes exactly back to the same thing.
I think I wrote Royce Russell one time on a ballot.
You can say it's power. I can say it's policy. I think they're synonymous when you talk about this, right? Because if I'm changing policy, that means that you're right. You won't eat because the policy is going to make somebody else eat. And for as much as we want to clap our hands and do a standing ovation for Brother Adams coming into power, there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, change policy. And when you change policy, that means other people come into power. So, I mean, they're almost interchangeable. You know what I mean? And when you say you're going to cut this or move something over there, that means other people are going to be displaced. And once you get displaced, you don't like that feeling. So let me jump on the train that's going to keep the status quo. When there's change, there's chaos. Change and chaos go hand in hand.
There is some truth. I detect no lies there, but what we can see is that the democracy is being stretched in numerous ways. This is really, I mean, a write-in. People have written me in for other organizations and positions. I'm like, don't write me in. I wasn't running for anything, but this is interesting, and we definitely have a lot to see unfold because I don't think this is going to happen silently. There's going to
No,
be some backlash
no,
as a result of what we saw.
no, and and
It's
and,
gonna be
and listen,
litigation too.
and just to be clear, this is not decided yet. What's happening is
Right.
if you look at the results of this race, it says India Walton, and then it says write-in candidate. That's what it says. It doesn't say Byron Brown. It says write-in candidate. So what's happening now is that they have to examine those ballots, and I'm not sure if I've seen any case law on what what the standards are. Suppose somebody wrote Byron Brown with an E at the end. Does he get that one or not? They're going to examine the intent of the voter. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. And then
This is
what
going to
does
be
this hold for the
interesting.
future when
Well,
other people decide, you know what, man, I'm going to run
Mhm.
as a write-in, and that's going to be the end of that. Forget about that petitioning stuff and all that other collecting signatures.
What I
I'm
can
going
tell
to
you right now, Ed, it all depends on your policy. If your policy is strong enough, as you said, let's do away with the two-party system. The three-party system is all about who has the microphone and what you're saying at the time. Then write-ins will become more and more popular as time goes on, just like ranked choice voting and a variety of other things. Now,
here, I
yeah.
knew we had to come back to the
having
ranked
know
choice.
that, having said that, and we always tell our listeners something, for every door that closes, a window opens. This also speaks to, is there time for people of color to start to educate themselves? That means yourself, myself, and other attorneys and consultants to educate themselves in election law, because clearly litigation is coming. And I don't mean the British,
Yep.
and I ain't Paul Revere. Litigation is coming.
And listen,
Well,
there was
let's
a cultural feature to this because there was a little rap kind of thing going on too. Because my man was like, his slogan was "Write down Byron Brown." That rhymes. I was like, damn.
well,
Mhm.
truly, there's been a lot to talk about on the political front
Yeah.
today and how that impacts a lot of what we talk about on the show when it comes to the rights of the people, when it comes to who is in office and influencing how we are able to get to having the right laws that protect and respect everyone in the community. So this is important to know, to pay attention to be continued, because this particular case clearly is not over. This particular election, and we are eager to see what happens once the changing of the guard goes down in New York, because we know we have people that participate and listen to the show from all over, but where New York goes, that influences a lot of where the country goes. So we are definitely appreciative of everyone's commentary today. Thank you, Kevin, as always, for being here. Richard, I don't know when your brother got elected, but okay. Deborah, appreciate you. And we thank you all for tuning in to today's show. There are some other topics that we'll dive into as we approach the next week in the month of November. But thank you so much for being on the show. Share this show out. If for nothing else today, may this be a reminder of how important it is to be engaged in the process. Every vote counts. So if you didn't see some of those that you wanted to see when we scroll through the results, and you didn't go to the poll, then you participated in not exercising what many of our ancestors, when we talk about where the legal meets the cultural, died for us to have. So thank you so much. Hey, Doc. Is that Dr. Neil Elston? Thank you for tuning in and being a part of the show as well. We appreciate you. So, final words from my legal experts before we wrap up today's episode.
Well, I'm just gonna say, keep your eye out on that case in Kenosha, Kyle Rittenhouse. If you recall, that was the young man who shot those people during that anti-police brutality protest after the shooting of Brother Blake. We talked about that on the show about a year ago. Now that young man is on trial. So, and the defense is, there's a self-defense defense being put forth by the defense attorney there, Mark Richards. And that's one to pay close attention to, because definitely related to what was occurring this summer. Also, what's happening with our municipal workers, the police, the sanitation workers, healthcare workers, all interesting stuff to keep your eye on.
I would echo that sentiment and say, not only look at our state, look what's going on in other states. Look at what is going on in Chicago. Look at the cases that are going to the Supreme Court. What is the Supreme Court saying in reference to qualified immunity when it comes down to police officers? Is that law consistent with what we have seen? Is it a backlash because we had the George Floyd Reform Act? Let me tell you, nothing stands alone and isolated in a vacuum.
That's
Politics infiltrates, proliferates every aspect of what folks do. And if you have a lifetime term where you don't have to worry about ever being terminated, ever being scrutinized to a degree that you have to admit to yourself that you're biased, prejudiced in some shape, form, or fashion, that's a dangerous tool.
Well, to be continued, because we will follow up on those stories of what's going on. But thank you, Richard. We love you too. Appreciate everyone. Be safe out there. We'll be back again 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week, Wednesday. Bye-bye, everyone.
Power to the people.